Welcome to Center the podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Braverman, and I'm sharing holistic health content that reconnects you to your most centered self, that place within you that is energized, knowing, and uplifted despite the chaos and demands of life. It's that place within you where you can become a portal of possibility. Today, we're welcoming Erica Elliott, the amazing friend, mentor, and I consider family. I'm so excited to introduce Erica. She's a medical doctor specializing in both family practice and environmental medicine. She has a busy private practice here in Santa Fe, treating patients from all across the country. Affectionately known as the medical detective, she diagnoses and treats chronic illnesses by uncovering and addressing underlying causes. Dr. Elliott came to medicine later than most medical students. She spent a decade pursuing other careers and interests, such as teaching on the Navajo Reservation, serving in the Peace Corps in Ecuador, mountaineering for Outward Bound, climbing peaks such as Aconcagua in Argentina, which is the highest mountain in the Western Hemisphere, and Denali in Alaska. She's a public speaker, an educator, and an author. She's spoken at Esalen, Omega Institute, and TedX. She's the co-author of her first book, The Prescriptions for a Healthy House, and she's the author of a trilogy of memoirs, including Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert, From Mountains to Medicine, and From Doctor to Healer. Welcome, Dr. Erica.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm always glad to share my information. I think I'm a natural born educator, but I only like to educate with things that make people have a better life. I'm not interested in anything else in terms of education.
We are so glad you're on this podcast because that is what my pursuit is and has always been. And I know so much more. My life is so enriched having you and your education, having been a part of it. And I know as a health coach, I share so much of what you've taught me with my clients as well.
Oh, that makes me feel so happy because this is actually the meaning of my life, is to be of service in ways that I'm good at, in ways that I love. And so that's what I tell my patients too. It's really important to find out what your gifts are and what you love doing, and then give them in service. And that is so powerful. And it makes the person doing it feel fulfilled.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Feeling purpose, it's one of those blue zone tenants. And if we can bring it into our life here, we're just living the dream.
Yeah, right. And I wrote the 3 books in the trilogy. Actually, it had nothing to do with making money. I mean, not anything to do. It had 2 purposes. One, so my son would know about my life. And the main purpose was to be of service to people, because the books are informative, they're inspiring, and they really help people who are lost on their path. And so that's how I hope what people will find my books. And then one of the books is about what we're talking about today. It's one of my first books, and you have the first book in there.
I'm going to show this. So if you're watching on YouTube, I have the first, one of the older editions,
And
A
I'm going to
Healthy
show
House.
the newer edition. This is the 4th edition. And in this one, I did not co-author. I did the foreword to this. And this is a huge opus magnum. I mean, anything you want to know about a healthy house, whether building a healthy house, what you put in the healthy house. And so it's really a gem. And so we're going to talk about what to put in a healthy home. Is that right?
We could talk about so many things because as you heard in the bio, I mean, that was only part of the bio. The bio could have been 10 minutes long. Erica's had such an amazing life. And actually, one of my personal favorite stories is her climb in Argentina. But today we're going to get into living in a healthy house. I built a house, a completely green certified house back in Bellingham before I moved here. And so much of what went into it was based on knowledge I had, both being an environmental scientist and from Dr. Erica and from this book. So yeah, what led you to support this book and what this type of work?
Okay, so what happened was I was in mainstream medicine and I didn't really enjoy it at all, but I made a deal with the devil, so to speak, and joined corporate medicine so I'd have time to spend with my little son, who was like 2 years old then. And otherwise, I'd be delivering babies all night. I'd be working on the weekends. I'd be on call all night. And how can I be a single mother and do all that? So I did corporate medicine, and I was so shocked because for me, it didn't have anything to do with healing. It was all about giving pills for each symptom. And I felt so rotten because I love people and I love helping them feel better. And I couldn't do it because if I spent too much time, there's pound, pound, pound on the door. And too much time was 15 minutes for follow-up visit and a half an hour for a new patient visit. So if they had anything other than a cold or something, there's no way doctors could have the time to address it properly. But then the universe did something to me that first seemed terrible, and then I realized it was a real gift. I got, quote, poisoned by this toxic building. It was a new building, outgassing lots of nasty chemicals. They used air fresheners, which are petroleum products. Had windows that didn't open. The pesticides they used were known to cause brain damage, chlorpyrifos. The EPA received thousands of reports about children being damaged from chlorpyrifos that was sprayed in the house, Dursban. And now it's banned for indoor use. And so every month, when they did it, I didn't even know what they're doing. I didn't know any of this stuff then. I was a beginner. I had no idea why I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And my brain was starting to act like I was demented. And I was tired all the time. And I'm a world-class athlete, and I was exhausted all the time. But again, like most people, they never associated with the building. I kept trying to, do I need a psychiatrist? No. And, they gave me pills for depression. And then I realized this isn't the problem. And I thought, is it because I hate this kind of medicine? Maybe that's why I'm falling apart. And then I said, no, when you hate something, it doesn't cause you brain damage and give you rashes. And so finally, a building inspector came, and because there were complaints about the HVAC, the heat and ventilation system, when the wind blows, it blows all the polluted discharge back into the building. So he came, and I started talking to him, and he said, "This is a toxic building." And then I finally, it's too long to relate the whole story, but I realized it was the building and that I had to get out of there. And then I thought my life was over, my being a doctor, because I was so damaged. But then it was like some miracle. All these people from the old clinic, the corporate clinic, found me and came to my house and knocked on the door and said they wanted an appointment in my house. And I was so confused because my brain wasn't working right. I thought, I said, why are you coming to me? And they all said the same thing. We're looking for a doctor who really listens to what we have to say and hears us and sees us and has compassion. And they would pay me for doing nothing, just listening. And finally, in order to get well, I had to study environmental medicine. And I was desperate to get well. I needed to keep being a doctor. I wanted to keep being a doctor. And I needed it to support my son and pay the mortgage and food and stuff. And so over a 3-year period, I got board certified in environmental medicine. The whole time I was learning about environmental medicine. By the way, it's all stuff you don't learn in medical school. It's all the important stuff. What you eat, what you breathe, what you put on your body, what you put in your house, what you wash your clothes with, what you wash your dishes with. all that stuff is never addressed. And my nutrition course was 2 hours in the med school. That's a joke. And
Oh boy.
we
Yeah,
learned about
especially because we know at least 80% of our life, the way it expresses is going to be through what we eat.
that's so true. That's the foundation. So my patients, I was so transparent with them. They knew I was damaged and brain damaged, and they hung in there with me. And actually they were telling all their friends, and pretty soon I had more patients than I can handle. And I never advertised, not once in my whole the 33 years of practicing this kind of medicine, never advertised once. But the people came from all over because they were so desperate to find a doctor who believed them. And so everything I learned, I shared with them. So they grew as I grew, and they all became experts. All those early days, they all became experts in their own condition. And which is great, because what I'm about is not do as I say, I'm the doctor. It's here, this is how it'll help you, this is what it does, and so forth. I educate, because that's part of helping a person get well, instead of just robotically taking a pill because the doctor said so, and you have no idea why you're taking that pill, or what it does or what it doesn't do, if it harms you or doesn't harm you, and stuff. And so then I started getting more and more and more well. And so Paula Baker Laporte, the co-author of that book, and now she's the full author of the fourth edition, she was my neighbor, and she came to me saying she was so tired all the time she could hardly stand up straight. She looked like an old woman. She was only in her 30s. She was an architect, and she built these very elaborate homes towards the mountains for the wealthy people. And she was always having bronchitis and pneumonia over and over, and looked like she was 80 years old. And she came to me with yet another case of pneumonia. And I said, Paula, you know, we need some education here. You have a reason for having these. They don't just come out of nowhere. This is not your genetics. This is what you're exposed to. And she looked really puzzled. I said, you're building these gorgeous homes, and they're all toxic because nobody's been trained in this kind of stuff to use non-toxic wood and stuff like that. And I said, you have what I have. And she said, no, I don't want to have what you have. I don't want it. I said, I'm awfully sorry, but that's what you have. And if you want to get well and stay well, you need to do what I'm doing. You need to learn about this, and I can share it with you. Anyway, she started to get better, and then she was so excited about not feeling bad that she said, you know, I think we're supposed to do something important together. I said, what's that, Paula? She said, we're supposed to write a book about this. People need to know about this. People are poisoning themselves all across the country. And we're really backward as a country in terms of acknowledging. Europeans are way more sophisticated about this stuff than us. And part of it is the corporations don't want us to know all this stuff. And so we wrote the book, and then her career took off. And her health took off, and she was so excited. And people came from all over the country to have her and her partner build non-toxic homes. And by the way, she's very artistic, so her homes are not only exquisitely healthy, you feel like you're sitting in a forest, but also they're beautiful. Often beautiful homes are toxic, by the way, but her homes are beautiful and healthy, and you feel great. And so my house was her very first non-toxic house. So she's gone a long way since there. I mean, I love my house. I just love it. But she's gone way beyond my house. And patients love coming here too. They smell the soup on the stove, and I don't have a white coat, and I'm very relaxed. And they walk through this beautiful community that I was one of the founders of. The co-housing community has big trees. You think you're in a oasis or a sanctuary. And so my patients come and they feel really calm when they come to see me. They're not scared. And I've heard over and over patients say, "You're the only doctor I actually look forward to seeing." And
The
so,
best part of their regime. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I'm going to talk to your listeners about the home. So that was just a prelude. And also, if you want to read about my journey, which is kind of mesmerizing, I think. I mean, when I wrote it, I thought, oh my God, did that really happen? How did I survive that? Oh my God. But it's very educational. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's called From Doctor to Healer. And it's the whole trajectory from doing mainstream medicine and being idealistic medical student, and then gradually realizing something was really wrong about what we were learning. And it wasn't only the fact that we only had 2 hours of nutrition. It was all pill oriented. We became experts in pills, and they no
Yeah. The
attention to.
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
It was very disappointing to me. And I thought, geez, this is the path I took. This isn't really helping people. And so it was a godsend that these bad things happened to me. So I want your listeners to know, never waste a bad experience.
That is one of my favorite takeaways that you've told me before. And the other one is be your own detective.
Be
Those are
your
my
own.
two favorite Dr. Erica isms.
Yeah, because when you're stripped and everything's wrong, you can rebuild your life according to your soul's desire. It's a chance to be the person you dreamed about being. And so these bad things can be a portal to transformation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
So
absolutely. And so many people are going through that right now, having things stripped away from them, whether it's their health or changes in family structure, moving somewhere they hadn't intended. And it all comes down to that sensation of being able to rebuild and being adaptable and knowing that you are that portal of possibility.
yeah, and one of my patients, which I adopted this phrase, she said, "You're composting disaster."
Yes, this is great. Yes, composting disaster. And then the book that Dr. Erica referred to is actually the third in her trilogy. And while that one really does chronicle a lot of what led her to this path, the other two are so rich and fantastic and have so many experiences that are so delicious to read. So don't miss the others just to
Yeah,
get
I
to that
think
one.
you'd really like the others. I mean, some of the people who read the one about my life with the Navajo people,
Yeah.
they just rave about it. And
You know what?
because,
If we could just touch on Uncle Ernst for a minute,
okay, okay,
that's always one of my favorites.
okay, that's in book two. Book two is From Mountains to Medicine. It was my 10-year trajectory looking for what I was meant to be doing, but each thing I did wasn't wasted. I used every single thing I learned on this 10-year trajectory to be a better doctor. Like, for example, when I was with the Navajos, I I arrived there not knowing their culture. I was so ignorant, and nobody taught me, and all the white teachers didn't really like the Navajo children and said they weren't very smart and stuff like that. Well, my teacher aide taught me how to speak Navajo, I mean the beginning of it, and then the students helped me, and because it wasn't written language back then, and and they have many sounds that don't exist in English. So it was really hard, but I'm linguistically oriented from traveling all around. So even with me, who learns languages easily, this was harder than Chinese. I have a sister who's fluent in Chinese. She said, this is way beyond Chinese, all the weird sounds. And when I started speaking Navajo, oh my God, the children just opened up to me, and they talked to me instead of looking down all the time and not talking. And they learned English so fast. These white teachers really didn't really know what's going on because the students didn't open up to them because they felt the teachers didn't like them, and they knew that I loved them, and they flowered. And here's the most amazing fact, and I have a newspaper article to prove it, that 3 people in that fourth grade class who didn't really speak English, to tell you the truth, and now they just were talking in English all the time. And this 3 little girls, they won regional speech contests. And that's
Amazing.
just after a year of learning.
Amazing.
Just a year. Because why? Because they were so excited that somebody cared about them, and they wanted to be able to talk to me in English. I mean, they were teaching me Navajo, but of course, I was talking like a 2-year-old in the beginning. And so they anyway, it was a total love affair, and they took me I checked out a different student each week to take them in my 4-wheel drive to their very remote homes in the Canyon de Chelly. And they invited me to their ceremonies that white people never see, and peyote ceremonies. I mean, I saw things that are really hard to believe. And I
wrote about some of them.
and I wrote about them. Yeah. And so then the second book, so everything I did helped me be a better doctor. And climbing big mountains, like I was the first American woman to climb Aconcagua, which is, like you said, the highest mountain in the Western Hemisphere. What I learned, it's not the same thing that the guys were doing. I was in an all-male climbing club, by the way. They somehow didn't think I was a woman, meaning they allowed me in because I was so different. And I wasn't like
They
their
knew you were superhuman.
No, because men are very shy back then, and you always have to be with a man, no matter what you do. And they wear skirts, and so they didn't know what to do with me, so they accepted me and taught me everything they know. So I was the only woman there, and pretty soon I was as good as they were. But what I learned that's different me from my other fellow climbers, well, maybe it's the same, I don't know, but I learned it's not about, yay, I made it to the summit, I'm so great. That wasn't what I'm all about. I'm all about overcoming my limitations, my self-induced limitation. It was all symbolic.
Yes.
All that I did was symbolic for, like, my fear, to overcome my fear, and and just thinking that, oh, I'll never make it, and this and that. And so this helped prepare me for medical school. So everything I did. So one of the things I did that began this whole journey, after college, I went to see my Uncle Ernst, and he was a genius. And I don't use that word lightly. I'm not a genius. He's a genius. And I know how to figure out problems, but I'm not a genius. I use common sense and critical thinking. That's my forte. He's a real genius. And so I went to visit him because my father said he was a quack, and my mother said he was a genius. And so I went like I was going to be a reporter, and talk to my uncle, interview him, and stuff like that. He was a very shy man. He had had a brutal upbringing. His father was a doctor, but the father was really nice, but he was always gone. And the mother died in childbirth. So he's raised by these really mean stepmothers who didn't want to be mothers, and with cruelty, with great cruelty. And how it manifested in him is he was terribly shy, but total genius. And I was trying to figure out, well, how do you know he's a genius? I thought to myself, what makes him a genius? So I talked to his patients, and they all said he's a genius because he was able to help these people get well who had been written off as hopeless cases from their cancer, from schizophrenia, all sorts of conditions that were deemed untreatable. And he got almost everybody well from, and it's very simple what he did. It was all like fasting and eating impeccable diet and so forth, and sauna and sunshine exposure and blah blah blah. It's just common. It's just what we're learning in the last couple decades. But this was in the 50s and 60s, and I visited him in 1970, and I came away saying, "Oh my God, he really is a true genius." And what happened with that, I so was so impressed with him. I said, could I, could could you mentor me? And so he said, "You're not ready." I thought, what does that mean? I'm not ready. I don't know, but he had a lot of intuition and foresight. And so, but I kept thinking, I interpret his meaning in a way that was harmful to me. When you're not ready, I thought, you're not good enough to be a doctor. So I had that idea for those whole 10 years that I wasn't good enough, even though it was in my DNA. Third generation doctor. It was in my DNA, but I kept overriding it, saying, I can't do that because I'm not ready and I'm not good enough and I'm not a genius. I know I'm not a genius. You could say you're smart, but genius is a total nother level. And so how I discovered that you don't have to be a genius to be a doctor is when I was in Colorado to get my master's degree in experiential education, because I wanted to do more like what Outward Bound did. I taught for Outward Bound and saw that it was life-changing for some of these students, totally life-changing. And in a mere 3 weeks, that's hard to believe, but it's true, because the parents would write me letters. What did you do to my son? Or what did you do to my daughter? They're so nice. And they say thank you, and they offer to wash the dishes and stuff like that. And so it was very, very rewarding. So I thought, oh, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be having, that kind of organization to help people. And so while I was getting my master's degree, I was kind of bored because it was so easy. So I became an EMT, and with my spare time. And I also, just because I wanted to do mountaineering stuff and help people who are in trouble in the mountains. And at the same time, with my excess free time, I took advanced placement biology and stuff like, because when I went to Antioch College, they were trying to be real progressive, and if you took tests and scored out of them, you didn't have to take the course, which was really too bad. Because
Okay.
because
I don't think you can do that anymore.
no, you can't. That was a big failure. That was Antioch was very experimental, and they didn't all work. So a lot didn't work, and so I felt deprived that I scored out of it and didn't. So I thought, this is my chance, and plus I'll get updated information. So I went to this class in Boulder, and they were all 10 years younger than me, and I found out that every one of them except me was pre-med. They were all planning on being doctors if they got in. And I thought to myself, oh my God, these people are not geniuses. They are good at memorizing and spitting things back, but there's no evidence of critical thinking, saying, why is this so? And how does that happen? And so I had an epiphany. You don't have to be a genius to be a doctor. And so
You broke through that block.
I
That's
broke through that block.
fantastic.
Yeah. But I
mean, really, you
I,
up-leveled your capacity so much with all the years of outdoor ed and mountaineering and then experiential learning that you did with the Navajo. I mean, so much led you to that moment. And there it was. All you needed to do was look around and see who your cohort would have been and
oh my
known
God.
you'd be okay.
Oh my God. I thought, I've been living with a misconception all this time. But then I thought, oh, wait, it's really good I had this misconception, because look at all that stuff I learned while I was on this 10-year search. I learned so much, and I wouldn't have traded that for anything. So, if I went in there to medical school as a 22-year-old, I'd probably be like my classmates, just believe everything they're told and not question anything. We were told some stuff that's obviously not true. You know, And so anyway, so then back to environmental medicine, I learned so much valuable stuff. And I learned why I was hit the worst at that clinic. Everybody felt bad, but why was I hit so hard? So part of my training was to learn about genetics. And there it was. And I don't clear toxins very well. I have a gene mutation that that doesn't create glutathione, and glutathione is the king of or queen of detoxification in the liver. So I have to be sure I take glutathione, but that's not enough. I have to avoid these things. And why did this happen in the clinic and not before? Because I never was in toxic places before. I was outside doing stuff, and this was a new experience for my body to be around disgusting pollutants all the time. And it was a new building, so it's outgassing all these petrochemicals, these building products. It was really horrible. I thank God I had fell apart. And I thank God I got out of there, because I don't know, I would have gotten more and more demented. And it was here's something hilarious. Because I wasn't, they chastised me a little bit because they wanted me to see like about 15 patients a day or something. And I just had such a hard time turning them away after 15 minutes. It was so hard, and then banging on the door. And so the supervisor, who's actually a doctor, he'd actually served in the Peace Corps. He really liked me, and you could tell he was going to have trouble with what he was about to say. And so he said, Erica, I have good news and I have bad news for you. This was after the first year. And I said, well, can we start with the good news so I can handle the bad news? And he said, yeah. He said, out of all I can't say the name, I'll get sued. Out of all this chain of corporate medicine clinics, it's all the same name. There's in Albuquerque, Santa Fe and stuff. In all those organizations, all those clinics, you are the only person, the only doctor who's never had a complaint filed against them. I said, really? What's the bad news? And he said, we can't give you a bonus because you need to see more patients in an hour. I thought, oh, brother. And I thought to myself, I don't care about the bonus. It's just horrible turning away patients, say your time's up, and I haven't even done anything to help them. I'm not willing to give a pill for each symptom, a pill for the headache, a pill for the stomach pain, a pill for anxiety. It just is horrible form of medicine, just horrible.
I want to throw in a little question here, and this is, a little bit outside of what I introduced you as, but I'm curious, what do you think, or how do you think your time at Plum Village with Thich Nhat Hanh influenced your work as a doctor?
Oh, he helped me so much. But he would, I say me, but it was all the people. I was just one of many people, and I brought my son too. He said things that really rang a bell, but I had no idea how important what he was saying would be when I was in such severe suffering, which we haven't gotten to. I bet you thought the building was the worst thing. I mean, the listeners, but no, it got much worse than that. What happened to me, and it wasn't related to a building. It was related to doctor negligence, and I had to be my own doctor. But so during this time of utter despair and misery, Thich Nhat Hanh's words came back to me all the time. Like he talked about putting your demons in the living room and serving them tea. And so, and
Total acceptance.
yeah, total acceptance. Here's your tea. Oh God, I'd like to kill you. Oh, but here's your tea. So, and he said something else at the time. I just didn't believe it, but I found out it was true. He said to everybody, not just, he wasn't just talking to me. He said, when you smile, the brain thinks you're happy. I thought, oh, Oh, sure. So, but I tried it out. It's
Yeah.
really true. So when I was in this horrible situation where I just wanted to commit suicide, I didn't sleep for a year. It was, I don't know how I managed. I pretended like I was normal. So people thought I was normal. They had no idea what was really going on with me. But I used what Thich Nhat Hanh says. So people thought I was a really happy person because I smiled because it made me feel less miserable.
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit about the neural pathways that are created because the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what we program into it. So
That's
we can program the reality we want to live, and then those neural pathways will be created. And that's
that,
part of the
that
work that you did. And of course, the Heart Math Institute has proven this since then, but you were really one of the people who used that tool before it was proven.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I remembered something in medical school. We part of our training was to sit in on AA meetings, and they're the things they go by. And one of the things they go by is fake it until you make it. And I thought, when at the time, I thought that is so phony. But then that's what saved me. That I acted like I was a normal person where I wasn't normal at all, but it was very helpful to me to take the focus off my extreme misery. So I've faked it. And people, when they read the book, they said, I had no idea you were suffering so much. I said, that's good because it means I did a really good job. I did a really good job. And okay, so I'm going to tell you a patient came back to Santa Fe after 20 years of being away, and she didn't know anything about what happened to me, nothing about this snowboarding accident.
Do you
And
want to just do a very short recap on the accident and then the medical
okay,
negligence,
so
just so people understand what we're talking about? This is, of course, detailed in Dr. Erica's book, but just since we're talking about it, please.
yeah, so I was doing really well after I recovered. It took 5 years to totally get my brain back, but all the time I was going up the graph. It wasn't like I'm miserable, now I'm fine. It was all the time I was improving, all the time. But after 5 years, I could say, gee, I feel better than I have in my life. I was doing so well, and I was writing in journals, giving information to everybody and going to being workshop leaders in different venues. And because I was committed to help the world understand these things. And so I was doing a public service all the time. And and then this was so for about 15 years. I had a reprieve, or 14 or something like that. I had a total reprieve. And I guess it was time to have another disaster because so I took my son to learn snowboarding, and he was 11 and I was like 55 or something like that. And I went to a place called Wolf Creek Pass where they have a lot of snow. And I didn't want to just wait in the car for him. I got antsy. And so I went inside the station and I asked if there was an instructor to teach me snowboarding. And so this guy came and he said, you're my mom's age. She would never do something like this. Are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yeah, I'm an athlete, so it comes natural to me. Well, I fell down constantly, natural or not. I mean, it's such a different way to put your feet and everything. By the second day, I started catching on. The third day, I was high as a kite. I was sailing like an eagle down the slope. And I just was madly in love with snowboarding. And I gave up the backcountry skiing for it. I gave up cross country skiing for it. I just love the like feeling like an eagle. And so one day I was in line to go up to the top of the mountain where there's lots of moguls and stuff. And I was just standing in line and a young man was bombing down the slope, and I looked up, saw him. I thought, wow, well, he's going to turn any minute. And he didn't know how to turn. and he smashed me up, and my left leg was very smashed up, and I looked like a rag doll with the leg, the bottom leg, lower leg pointing outwards laterally, like a broken doll. And yeah, I was in shock. So initially, no pain at all. But then when the shock wore off, it was intensely painful. But anyway, so I had surgery and they rebuilt my knee with cadaver bone chips and a plate and screws and everything. And I healed very fast because I was extremely healthy. I healed. He said, I'd never seen anybody heal this fast. Well, fast meant I was only in bed for 3 months. That was terrible. But some people are in bed for 6 months because you're rebuilding the whole thing. And so then everything seemed fine. And after 6 months, I started developing one autoimmune disease after another. And I think the people should read the book because it's so horrible describing it.
And we're not going to go into detail. Just wanted them to understand that there was another experience other than the sick building syndrome.
Yeah, and it ended up causing real brain damage. I had to have brain surgery, and I have metal in my head. So but anyway, so the last part of the book is really uplifting. It's because how I learned to live with this stuff. And I had to have, since suicide was out, it would have ruined my son's life. I had to, number one, I had to accept this is who I am. And that was really hard for me to do. To be impaired was really hard, visually impaired, and then only seeing out of one eye at a time, so no peripheral vision, no depth perception, everything blurry, migraines, no sleep. So I had to accept this new me. Number two, I had to learn how to live with it. So that took quite a while, learning how to live with all these problems. And three, I learned, this is the biggest achievement of all. I learned how to be happy in spite of it all. I learned joy, which is independent. It's happy. The way it's used is like something right happens, you're happy. Something bad happens, you're not happy. Joy is independent. And I learned that. And so the ending is really uplifting and inspiring. I mean, did you find that to
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to know you and know how joyful you are. And joy, again, this is an energy that comes from the inside. It is a soul expression of energy that it has nothing to do with the material world, right? This joy is about this personal triumph, this experience, and moving away from having such a strong, expression of ego and orientation that way in the material world and into a greater expression from that portal of possibility. I just love that.
Yeah, so I actually, this is shocking that I wouldn't trade this. I don't want to be the old Erica because that old Erica was only happy when things were going right and not when things, and I have joy even when things are really horrible, really horrible. I still, and so this patient who came to me, yeah, she said, wow, did you win the lottery or something? I said, no. And she said, well, you must be madly in love. No, why do you think that? She said, well, why are you so joyful? And I thought, I, for no reason. So she was really stumped by that.
In spite of it all. Yes.
In spite of it
so
all.
Fantastic. Before we wrap up, can I just steer you back to a couple of things, a couple of takeaways people can have to help make their home, what they put on their personal, like their body temple, what they can do to keep clean that way, environmentally clean?
Yeah. So the first thing, the most important thing, and this takes place in your house, is what you eat. But that's a big topic, so we're not going to go deep into it. But the people have to know that the food that most Americans eat is extremely unhealthy and toxic. And this ultra processed foods, all the packaging and all that stuff, we have to wean ourselves off that. It's created specifically to cause addiction. That's part of the agenda of manufacturing this stuff. So they'll have buyers over and over again. And the seed oils have to go and so forth. That's a big subject, but that's the foundation. And when I see a patient who's terribly chronically ill, we start with the diet unless there's something really pressing, like mold in the house or something like that, or they've sprayed pesticides or something. So then the food thing has to be delayed a little bit till it's like a house that's burning down. You can't give Chinese herbs for burns when somebody's still in a house that's burning down. You have to get out and then you take the Chinese herbs. Well, so whatever is really that has to be fixed, and then you do the diet, and you spend a lot of time figuring out the diet and anything you're allergic to and where you can buy affordable, healthy, organic food and stuff like that. And what kind of animals are you eating? Have the animals had 100% good life, or have they been tortured? Or have they been stuffed with grains and vaccines and hormones and antibiotics? You need to know where your chickens come from. Most of them are tortured in factory farms. It's absolutely horrendously cruel, and the chickens are unhealthy. And when you do the egg yolks, if it's light yellow, it's probably they've had a horrible life, never outside digging in the dirt for worms and insects, which make the yolk beautiful orange color. Anyway, so you have to get really knowledgeable about food. And then you need to look around and see if you can get rid of all possible petroleum-based products, like your dishwashing solution, your fabric softener, your air freshener. They're all disgusting because they're all petroleum products and petroleum based, and that's cancer causing, among other things. It can cause autoimmune disease and stuff. When you're loading your body up with all these nasty things. And so you need to think for yourself and say, is this good for me? And if it's not, you need to go find a substitute. And it's important you don't buy like synthetic carpeting, for example, that outgasses all these nasty. When I studied environmental medicine, there was one carpet that released 300 toxic chemicals, 300. And and you have to, if you're going to paint your house, you have to investigate the paints that don't give off horrible VOCs because it'll wreck your lungs, among other things, in your brain. And you have to not use plywood that outgasses formaldehyde. You have to think through what you're doing and what you bring into the house and what you bathe with, what you brush your teeth with. Everything needs to be scrutinized. If you use cream for your skin, you have to analyze it. If you don't know what a word means, you need to look it up. Some of the words look nasty, but they're not. They're the Latin name for some substance or something, but many of them are petroleum-based toxic substances that are in your product. And the less of those, the better. You want to go natural as much as possible. And I'll leave your listeners with something very shocking. They probably all heard it by now, but we have the highest, most expensive healthcare system in the entire world, and nobody's even near us. We're up here, and Germany's down here, and then the other ones are down. So that no one's even close to us in the cost of healthcare. That's fact number one. Fact number two, 53% of our population has one or more chronic conditions treated with medication. That's horrific. Number three, shocker, now I'm talking about chronic conditions, not infections and so forth. We are the sickest nation in the entire world. The sickest nation in the entire world. And we're the wealthiest nation in the entire world. Something is so wrong. We can't let the corporations ruin our lives.
I'm just going to put a little plug in for what I do. So I'm a holistic health coach. I focus on ancient remedies and how it meets up with modern science. And everything I do is an herbal remedy from the kitchen. And I have never been healthier. Okay. So I'm just saying. And I learned from Dr. Erica. I learned from books. I've always been my own detective. As you know, I do research on everything. So if you have questions, put them in here. We'll get back to you. Otherwise, you can find Dr. Erica. Would you like to share where we can find you?
Yeah, yeah. I have two websites. One is my book platform, but you'll learn a lot more than just my books. You'll see little videos that you might really enjoy and lots of photos and stuff. It's called Erica Elliott. Erica Elliott, MD, EricaElliott.com. And then the other blog site is called Musings with an S, Musings, Memoir and Medicine.com. And it's all one word, Musings, Memoir and Medicine.com. And there you'll find different categories. You'll find things about that are personal, like memoir type things. You'll find recipes. You'll find travel logs. But what you'll really benefit from is the medical blog post. So you click on the category medicine and then only the medical posts. And that's what would be very helpful to you. And yeah, so I think you'll really enjoy that, and you'll learn things that your doctor doesn't even know or
Of course.
tell you
You're
about.
talking to a master here, everybody, listening to a master. So I'll put those sites in the show notes, and you can follow up with Dr. Erica in either of those two places and keep being that portal of possibility. Just remember the key thing is, this is the age of information, and we have all this information at our fingertips. It used to be so buried that we couldn't access it, and it's so accessible now. And just having that sense of mindfulness and awareness and that idea of being your own detective, you can make great leaps in your health just in your own kitchen. All right. Thanks. And we'll see you soon. And if that episode resonated with you and you'd like to go deeper into your healing journey, check out my newly released book, Centered: The Art of Living from Within, now available on Amazon. Or head over to centeredbyleslie.com to schedule a no-cost strategy session for wellness coaching, Ayurvedic therapies and herbal consults, back pain healing, and yoga. I'm looking forward to working with you.